Thank you all so much for joining. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be able to sit with all of you. As you can see behind me, the galleries of the Asian Art Museum, which are very special, and I have had the privilege of leading meditation in those galleries before, and I do hope we'll be able to do that again before too long. But for now, we can be virtually present in these galleries um, and sit together wherever we are. It looks like we have well over 100 people, so that's wonderful. Probably more than we could fit in the gallery itself, and so that is one of the silver linings of this time, is it's a chance to reach out and connect with people that we might not be able to see even in a world where we were able to meet physically. Today we're going to do a couple of short meditations. If you have not meditated before, don't be afraid. This will be a gentle introduction. If you have meditated many times, perhaps this will be a chance to do it in a somewhat new setting with a new group of people sitting with you. If you're used to sitting by yourself, as many of us are, especially these days, it's really something special and different to sit together with other people. So the way this will work today is I'm going to talk a little bit, give some instructions, talk a little bit about what we're doing, and then we'll do a short meditation, about 10 minutes. Then we'll take a pause so that you can stretch and have a glass of water or whatever you need to do. And then we'll do one more somewhat longer session, about 15 minutes. And then when that is finished, I'll stick around to take questions from any of you, and then we'll be done for the day. So to start with, I thought I'd say a little bit about why do we meditate at all. The meditation tradition that I come from is the Buddhist tradition. There are meditation traditions in many faiths around the world. Buddha practiced about 2,500 years ago. He was born a prince in ancient India, led a very privileged life for a long time. And in fact, his parents made a special effort to try to have him avoid any possible suffering. They went so far as to post guards at the gates to the palace and wouldn't let anybody in who seemed like they were sad or diseased or might in any way kind of bring down the mood in the palace. But like many of us who've had children that we've tried to shelter, this worked for a little while, and then it didn't. And that no matter how hard we try to protect our children from suffering of the suffering of the world, it finds a way to find them. And so suffering found Buddha. He snuck out of the palace one day and got one of his servants to take him around the village. And while he was traveling in the village, he encountered people who were sick, people who were old, people who were dying or dead. And so suddenly his life in this kind of pleasure palace didn't feel right anymore. And he realized there had to be more to life than just fun and games. And so he began traveling around India and studying with lots of different teachers, practicing yoga and other kind of austerities that people in those days and actually still do practice around India. But he didn't find that satisfying either. And so eventually he decided he would neither pursue these kind of austerities nor pursue this life of pleasure. He would just sit. And so he found this spot that is now famous under what we now call the Bodhi tree. And he just sat. And he vowed to just sit until he had kind of worked out life's great mysteries. And so it's said that he sat all night. And then at the first sight of the morning star, he had his great awakening. And his great awakening was that we all need to find that kind of middle path between chasing a life of pleasure, courting a life of pain. We need to find a path right in the middle where we experience the suffering of the world. We don't run away from it, but we don't wallow in it either. That we find a way of accepting it, and then accepting each moment as it comes. And so ever since that time, Buddhists have followed in his example, and practice the same thing of sort of sitting still and practicing that sense of just acceptance of the world, neither pushing it away nor wallowing in the suffering that maybe we feel, but just experience each moment, experiencing joy, experiencing sadness, experiencing pain, experiencing pleasure, just being completely present. And the word that we often use in English now is being completely mindful. And that's something we don't just try to do when we're sitting in meditation. It's something we try to do throughout life. But you can think of meditation as sort of a practice of that kind of mindfulness. And I think of it a little bit like when you're learning to drive and you practice driving in, let's say, an empty parking lot. And you don't do that because it's all that useful to get good at driving in empty parking lots. You do that because you develop skills and sort of muscle memory and a mental awareness that then allows you to drive anywhere, that then allows you eventually to go out on the highway. And you do it in the parking lot for really the very simple reason that it's easier. It's a way to build up those skills where the stakes are relatively low. And I think of meditation, sitting meditation of the sort we're doing now, as somewhat similar. That sitting, often by ourselves or in a quiet room with other people, with few distractions, hopefully, sometimes facing a wall, sometimes with our eyes closed, is an opportunity to practice mindfulness without all the distractions that we would have in our normal daily lives. And the interesting thing is that it's still difficult, even without those distractions. Because the one distraction that we can't avoid, even sitting by ourselves, is the distraction of our own minds. And so sitting in meditation like this is an opportunity to practice, in a sense, overcoming that one fundamental distraction. And once we've developed some skill there, we can take that with us when we stand up again, when we're working, cooking with people and friends, or again, when we're just by ourselves. As Indra mentioned, I practice in the Zen tradition. Buddhism started in India, but quickly spread across much of Asia and ultimately to every other continent. It came to Japan through China and developed in various ways along that journey. In our tradition, we sit silently. It's most traditional to sit on the floor, which is what I'm doing now. You're welcome to do that if you're in a space where that's convenient, but it's also fine to sit on a chair or really anywhere that you're comfortable. The most important thing is to sit in a way where you feel fully supported and where you can be as upright as possible, your shoulders back, your back straight. You can actually see an example of this traditional position over my shoulder here, this Buddha statue, where he's sitting with his legs crossed and his hands in the traditional, what we call mudra, which is one on top of the other, and then gently touching the thumbs together, and then just let them sit in your lap. And you can do that whether you're sitting cross-legged like that Buddha, or whether you're sitting on a chair. Typically in Zen, we keep our eyes opened, but with our gaze lowered, so that again, there's as few distractions as possible. And when possible, we sit facing a wall. But in this environment where you may be facing a screen, or you may have other distractions going on in the room, it's certainly fine with me if you would prefer to sit with your eyes closed. So that takes care of the physical part of sitting. What's left is the mental part, if you will. And again, our intention when we sit is just to cultivate a sense of complete awareness, of complete mindfulness, to be fully present in this moment. But how do you do that? I find the most helpful way to start is to just try to bring your attention to your own breathing, to try to notice completely each in-breath and each out-breath, each in-breath and each out-breath. You don't need to breathe in any special way. I don't know if you'll be able to hear my breathing over the microphone, but you don't need to try to match your breathing to mine or in any particular way that you think maybe someone is supposed to breathe. But just to let yourself breathe and give your full attention to each of those breaths. When you're just starting out, it often helps to narrate your breathing. And so with each in-breath, you can say to yourself silently, I am breathing in. And with each out-breath, say to yourself, I am breathing out. I am breathing in. I am breathing out. And just continue that during the course of our sitting. You may find as you're sitting that your mind starts to wander. And maybe at some point, you realize that you have not been thinking about your breath at all, that you're thinking about some shopping you need to do later today, or some noise you've heard in another room in your house, or something you forgot to finish at work yesterday. And that's okay. Don't beat yourself up for those moments of distraction, which happen to all of us and certainly still happen to me every time I sit. Just pay attention to those thoughts and let them be a reminder to then bring your attention back to the next in-breath and the next out-breath. You can let those thoughts arise, but don't grasp them. Notice those thoughts and then notice them fade away. And again, bring your attention back to your breathing. And try to give your full attention to the next in-breath and the next out-breath. So I don't know if that sounds easy. For some people it is, for most of us it's not. But let's give it a try together. In our tradition, we typically ring a bell 3 times to start our sitting. And although I'm told it doesn't sound perfect over these microphones, I'll ring the bell here. When you hear the sound of the bell, just listen to the bell. Listen to it until you can't hear it any longer. And then bring your attention to your breathing and just notice your breath until you hear the bell again. I'll ring the bell 3 times for us to start. And then at the end, I'll ring it just 1 time for us to stop. And I might jump in with a little bit of instruction along the way, but for the most part, we'll sit silently together. Now bring your full attention to your breathing, noticing each in-breath and each out-breath. Each in-breath and each out-breath. If you feel yourself starting to slump over, just notice that feeling. Try to bring your body upright again. Bring your attention back to the next in-breath and the next out-breath. Again, if you notice your mind wandering, that's okay. Just notice the wandering. Notice your thoughts, and then let them go. Let those thoughts be a reminder to bring your attention back to that next in-breath, next out-breath. In-breath, out-breath. Now when you hear me ring the bell once to end our session, again just notice the sound of the bell. Notice it until you can't hear it any longer. Then take one more in-breath, one more out-breath, and we'll be done. Okay. Well, if that was your first time meditating, congratulations. Thank you. If you've meditated many times before, thank you for doing it with us. As I said, we'll take a little bit of a break now. I'll say a few more words, but you can, of course, open your eyes if you close them during our session. You can stand up and stretch or change your legs or your posture if you're feeling a little bit stiff. We try to sit as upright as we can so that our bodies feel fully supported. Each of our vertebrae should feel like it's just resting gently on the one beneath it, and that we're able to sit almost like without effort, or at least without physical effort. That we can just be fully present. People sometimes think about meditation as a mental exercise, and of course it is that, but it's also a physical exercise. It's something that we do with these bodies. And so sitting in this upright posture is part of what it means to sit in meditation. The next session will be just a little bit longer. We'll sit for 15 minutes. And then, as I said, after that, you're welcome to stick around and ask questions. And I'll stay here and do my best to answer. But now if you've stood, perhaps come and sit again. If you need to have a glass of water, you can do that now. And let's find our positions where we do feel fully supported and get ready to start again. I will once again ring the bell 3 times for us to start and 1 time at the end. Again, I encourage you, when you hear the sound of the bell, to just notice that sound. Just notice it until you don't hear it any longer. And then bring your full attention to breathing. Noticing each in-breath and each out-breath. I should also say I can't see any of you, and so you don't need to look at the camera. You're welcome to face away, face a wall, even turn off your camera altogether. You don't have to look at the screen while you're meditating. And you're also welcome to close your eyes, which many people do find easier, especially for these online meditations. So now find your comfortable position. Again, I recommend you put your hands in the traditional mudra, one palm resting on the other, the 2 thumbs gently touching to make a bit of a circle, to have your hands at your lap, well away from keyboards and phones and other distractions. And we'll begin. Remember to keep your attention on your breathing, noticing each in-breath and each out-breath, each in-breath and each out-breath. If you notice your mind drifting, that's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Notice the thoughts, but don't grasp them. Notice them and let them go. Allow those thoughts to be a reminder to bring your attention back to the next in-breath and the next out-breath. The next in-breath and the next out-breath. Now, once again, when you hear me ring the bell once to end our session, just notice the sound of the bell. Notice it until you can't hear it any longer. And then take one more in-breath, one more out-breath, and we'll be done. One more in breath. One more out breath. That's it. Thank you so much for sitting with me today. Of course, you can do these sittings by yourself anytime. And I think you'll find if you can bring your full attention to this moment, to this one moment of sitting, you can bring your full attention to the next moment and to the moment after that and to every moment. And bringing your full attention to every moment is what it means to be fully awake and fully alive. So thank you. I will hang out here for a while. If you have any questions, you're very welcome to put those in the Q&A box in your screen, and I will do my best to answer. And otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful weekend and stay healthy and safe. The one question in the chat, do you recommend meditating on a word or image? That's not our usual practice in Zen. There are many traditions that do focus on a mantra or on some image. Our practice is really to use the breath. And I think of our breathing as kind of a natural metronome almost. You might imagine that you could use your heartbeat, that's an even better metronome. But most of us aren't aware of our heartbeat unless we're, actually taking our pulse or something like that. And so our breathing has this nice characteristic of being always present with us, and also being sort of fully knowable. We can pay attention to it. And so the Zen tradition has adopted that as our focus when we're getting started with meditation. Somebody else said that the mudra, what I suggested, feels a little forced. Is it okay simply to let your hands rest on your lap? It's certainly fine with me. This posture has developed over the centuries and seems to work well for many people. But again, there's many other traditions that use other postures. You might sometimes see people with their hands in this posture, their hands on their knees. You should do something that feels natural to you. I would say the most important thing is that you sit as regularly as you can, rather than that you use any particular technique. It's like we have a few other. Let's see, one question was, what are your thoughts on trying to meditate lying down? I've certainly done that before. I would say, and maybe this sounds funny, but the biggest risk is that you might fall asleep. You might get so fully relaxed in that position that you actually fall asleep, and that actually did happen to me once in a Zen meditation hall, and I was finally woken up by the bell that rang at the end of the session. But many people, particularly people who have issues with their knees or legs or back, do meditate lying down. And again, the most important thing is that you find a way of meditating that works for you and that you feel you can continue. meditating regularly, I think, is more important than any particular time. Somebody else asked, is there any particular time when practice should happen? How many times a day? Well, the two traditional times, I would say, are first thing in the morning and last thing at night. I personally meditate in the morning. I find that it's a nice way to start my day. And there's a long tradition in many, many meditation cultures of meditating kind of at dawn, really first thing in the morning. And I guess we're, to some extent, imitating or paying homage to that first meditation session of the Buddha, where he meditated as the morning star was rising. Other people, find meditating in the morning very difficult. Their mind is already on all the things that they need to do that day. They're thinking about the emails they have to write, or the job they have to get to, the deadline they have. And so in that case, it is absolutely fine to meditate at night. In a traditional Zen temple, we would meditate both times, morning and night. So I would just say do whichever one feels works for you, and which you feel you can do most regularly. So why sometimes can I sit for 15 minutes, but sometimes I can only sit for 1 minute? So I would encourage you to try to pick a period of time in advance, as we did today. There are many, you can use a traditional kitchen timer, you can use a timer on your phone. There are apps that you can use. I use the app myself, Insight Timer, that is free, and you can just set exactly how long you want to sit. I find that if I sit without a set timer, that I get distracted by basically asking myself how long I should sit. So each minute, sort of asking, should I stop now? Should I stop now? And if you just sort of let go of that feeling of trying to make a choice of how long to sit at each moment, I just find that I can relax into the meditation more thoroughly. And I don't think it has to be a long time. You could start with 5 minutes. And most people, I've meditated with everyone from, kids and teenagers up to people, well into their 60s, 70s, 80s. 5 minutes is doable for most people. You have to find a position that you can hold, but once you do that, I would recommend that you start with a time that you feel you can do regularly, and really then try to commit to doing that amount of time. At some point, you may get to where 5 minutes feels too short, and then you can go to 10 minutes, 15 or 20. I find that it's shorter meditations that you can really commit to doing every day are better than long meditations that maybe you do once and then you don't do again for weeks or months after that. So find a period that you feel you can do regularly, and then try to commit to that. Just scrolling through some of the questions we have here. Somebody else asks that I didn't emphasize any particular method of breathing. That some people have suggested that you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Again, there are many, many meditation traditions, so that is a tradition. In Zen, in particular, so in my tradition that I have kind of grown up with, we don't focus on any particular method of breathing. We generally sit with our mouths closed and breathe through our nose. But even that, if you have a cold or something, you can breathe through your mouth. The main thing is actually to try not to control your breathing, but just to notice it, to pay attention to it. But if you feel some affinity for one of these other techniques, certainly there's nothing wrong with that at all. As the meditation went on, I found it harder to sit supported. Are there exercises I can do with meditation to build those muscles? Well, many meditators will practice yoga. and find that that helps them develop those muscles, or just stretch. Um, and I think anything you do that strengthens your core is probably quite helpful. But just sitting itself, again, if you sit every morning for 5 minutes, you'll get a little more comfortable in the position, and then you can work your way up to longer if you'd like. So I find just sitting itself will eventually help you develop those muscles. Maybe I'll just take a couple more questions, and then I see we're pretty much out of time. If you're meditating alone, do you ring a bell to start and finish the session? So again, some of these apps like Insight Timer that I mentioned, they'll ring the bell for you, and they actually have some very nice sounds on our phones. But I will sometimes, if I don't have my phone with me, or I'm meditating somewhere where I'm completely offline, I will ring the bell at the start or the end. I find it to be a very nice tradition. Let's see if I can find one more. Someone asked, can we just do natural breathing during meditation? And the answer is yes. I think just paying attention to how you breathe in a very natural way is absolutely fine. And maybe last, I'll just take this question. Are there recommendations for readings about meditation in the Zen tradition? So if you were here at the very beginning, Indra mentioned probably the most famous book of Zen meditation, which is called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And it's a series of lectures given by the founder of the San Francisco Zen Center, Shunryu Suzuki Roshi. And interestingly, it's not even lectures that he gave at Zen Center. It's lectures that he gave at somebody's living room down here in Silicon Valley, where I live. He used to travel down here once a week to just an informal sitting group, people like me and you and others that were just sitting together outside of any temple, without fancy robes and things like that. And he would sit with the students there, and then he would speak a bit. And one of the students who was hosting him down here, I think these happened in Los Altos, not far from me, recorded them and transcribed them and created that book. So I find Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind to be a wonderful introduction. Another from sort of a sister tradition in Vietnam comes from the author Thich Nhat Hanh, and that's The Miracle of Mindfulness, which is I also find to be a very nice introduction to meditation and mindfulness more generally. So I think with that, I will end our session. Thank you all so much for joining. It really is a privilege to sit with so many people and in the presence of these wonderful Buddhas that are in the collection of the Asian Art Museum. I hope we get the chance to sit together in a room again before too long. But in these days of having to sit apart, I very much appreciate that we can be apart together in this way. Thank you so much. Please stay safe and stay well. And I hope we get the chance to sit together again.